Here is all 15 Black Bull members, and we're starting right away with Yami Sukehiro, the captain of the Black Bulls. He is famous for his tough love, aggressive personality, the iconic quote "surpass your limits" right here, right now, and for leading the worst and most destructive squad in the Clover Kingdom. The only squad to once hold a negative score in the kingdom's rankings. It's composed of criminals, lunatics, failures, outcasts, and downright weirdos. And also someone with zero magic. The world's rejects, branded as the worst of the worst, all fall under Yami, who is able to bring out their true potential and give them a place where they belong. Additionally, Yami is also known for spending way too much time in the bathroom. Okay, moving on from that. His story begins far away from the Clover Kingdom, in Hino country. Yami was born in a clan where his abusive father tried to force him to become a swordsman because he thought Yami would become the strongest of their clan. But all Yami really wanted to do was go fishing and keep his sister safe. But then, a single night changed everything. At the age of 13, his father wanted him to consume the Demon Soul Pill, which jacks up bloodlust and latent abilities to an explosive rate. But one thing leads to another and his sister Ichika takes it instead. But Ichika could not control it. The drug caused her to enter a state of uncontrollable rage and bloodlust, and the intensity of this rage was so much, without even realizing it, she slaughtered the entire clan. Yami, with help from his childhood friend Ryudo, decided to take the blame for massacring the clan in order to protect Ichika from the truth, and with that, he left his home country. After being shipwrecked in the Clover Kingdom, Yami became an immediate outcast, facing heavy discrimination as a foreigner who didn't even speak the language. It wasn't until Julius himself reached out to him and asked him to join the Magic Knights that Yami experienced kindness for the first time since he came to the Clover Kingdom. This is around the same time as he starts getting along with Nacht, the man who would eventually become the vice captain of the Bulls. They get along well, committing petty crimes together while on the streets. When Yami takes the entrance exam, he manages to get recruited by Julius's squad, the Grey Deer, and this is where Julius teaches him their country's language. Within this squad, Yami becomes friends with Nacht's younger twin brother, Morgan. They soon develop a reputation amongst the Magic Knights as the light and dark duo. Unfortunately, Morgan dies, and we'll talk about the circumstances of his death in Nacht's section. Though let me point out here that it is at Morgan's grave that Yami declares that he would make Nacht his vice captain after achieving his ambition of becoming a squad leader. Yami rises through the ranks quickly, eventually becoming the captain of his own squad, the Black Bulls, while William Vengeance, the man who was once stated to be the closest to becoming the next Wizard King, becomes the captain of the Golden Dawn. They have a similar kind of rivalry as the one with Yuno and Asta. Of course, he makes Nacht his vice captain. And then after that, the story of the Black Bulls truly begins as he finds Henry's home to make it their base and recruits a lot of outcasts like himself. To be honest, as a captain, Yami is horrible by captain standards. There's barely any discipline, structure, and he barely teaches or leads missions. He lets the Black Bulls run wild, freedom to do pretty much anything they want. But from that, he expects them to become the best versions of themselves possible. His main priority is providing support only when needed, rather than constant orders, because he wants to let them grow on their own. But when it comes down to it, all the members will listen to him out of pure respect for who he is. After all, Yami cares genuinely for his squad and would not hesitate to go against the kingdom itself or put his own life on the line in order to save the people he cares about. In combat, Yami is one of the strongest in the Clover Kingdom. He has the rare dark magic, and unlike most elements, darkness is naturally slow. Yami channels it through his katana to make it fast and lethal. Yami can also use the natural pull of dark magic to literally suck in and nullify enemy magic, especially light magic, with spells like Black Hole. Plus, because dark magic can interfere with the underworld, Yami is one of the few humans capable of actually harming and killing high-ranking devils. Yami's classic offensive spells include the Dark Cloaked Dimension Slash, which is an attack that cuts through space itself. Its upgraded version, Equinox, further extends the range and read. Death Thrust is a condensed, high-speed blast of darkness launched from the tip of his sword, and Black Moon is actually an expansion of the Black Hole spell, which creates a void around him to erase any enemy spells that enter his territory. Yami's other spells are variations or upgrades of these. There's also his Ki Mastery. This is a technique from his homeland, and it allows Yami to sense the life energy of others. By reading Ki, he can predict an opponent's movements and muscle twitches before they even attack. By entering Mana Zone and combining it with Ki Sensing, Yami can achieve a level of reaction time that rivals Julius Novachrono's Future Sight. Next, like most other magic knights, Yami can use reinforcement magic to amp his physical stats. This is also how he fixes the natural slowness of dark magic to speed blitz. Plus, after being used as a sacrifice for the Klopoth Advent ritual, Yami's body was structurally altered with a devil heart. He is now brimming with magic power in a way that makes him physically similar to a devil, which is why Adremelik, a high-ranking devil, said in chapter 385 that this makes Yami the ideal devil host, and he actually has become Adremelik's host, gaining access to light magic, allowing him to manipulate and generate light to add on to his dark magic. In the final war, Yami is about to die, but Ichika gives him the same demon soul pill from way back when. Yami is able to control its effects, fusing it with the devil heart, and transforms, giving him limitless dark magic combined with the strongest muscles in the series. He is able to one-shot a Lucius clone that was stated to be 4 times stronger than the King of Hell Lucifero. But despite all of this, Yami's greatest ability is his eye for talent, seeing those with potential that no one else could see. Every choice he made in his team was deliberate, and every member equally as powerful as they are insane. So stay tuned as I cover each and every one of them. Number 2 on our list is the Vice Captain, Nacht Faust. He is brutally honest and has a deep hatred for evil, to the point he has stated that even if gods and devils forgive unjust evil, he never will. To understand why, we have to take a look at his past. He and his twin brother Morgan were born to House Faust. At the age of 15, after getting his grimoire, he heard about the foreigner with weird magic and got curious. This is how he met Yami, and they had fun playing around and committing petty crimes. Though when Yami and Morgan joined the Grey Deer Squad, Nacht doesn't join even though his brother asks him to. Later at age 18, he learns about the family's history of studying devils from his parents. He soon manages to bind 4 devils, Gimodello, Slotos, Humede, and Walagner, and even master their powers. Unfortunately, one day, when his father gives him a bracelet connected to a highest ranking devil named Lucifugus, Nacht decides to summon the devil because he is all about surpassing his limits, even though his brother tells him not to. Well, Lucifugus was clearly beyond anything that Nacht could bind. He could only watch as the devil killed his family. In the end, Morgan manages to break the bracelet, which cancels the ritual and send Lucifugus back. But by this point, Morgan was also at the verge of death. He dies in Nacht's arms while talking about his dream of protecting the Magic Kingdom together as Magic Knights. After the burial, while Nacht is in front of the gravestone, Yami comes along and promises to make him the vice captain once Yami becomes a captain himself. He takes Nacht's pack of cigarettes that he had thrown away and leaves. Sure enough, Yami eventually makes him the vice captain, even though Nacht himself had conflicting feelings about it. And then, while Nacht visits the base once, he ends up leaving on a mission that was about going undercover in the Spade Kingdom to investigate the Dark Triad, whom he considers as unjust evil, and exactly what he can never forgive. You see, when he was young, he only did what he wanted, but because of what happened, he developed this idea that something is only good if it is good from the start. He believes that something bad that becomes good, even if it's a pleasant surprise, is still ultimately bad. That just because you do good, you can't make up for what you did bad. Naturally, this is because he can't forgive himself for what he did. Nacht also dislikes all Magic Knight captains, including Yami, and has no problem telling them this to their face. Plus, unlike Yami, who sees the Black Bulls as family, he hated them at first because of their recklessness. He saw his younger self in them. He doesn't start fully respecting them until they manage to defeat Morris Livordert to free Yami. Though for what it's worth, Nacht does like Asta. In fact, he's the only one Nacht actually likes because Asta has been a good person from the start. When it comes to his magic, Nacht uses shadow magic, which allows him to slip through shadows and pin enemies down so they can't move. He can even use a move called the Monument of Atonement, a massive shadow tomb that traps enemies. With Shadow Corridor, he can transport himself and his allies, And with Dark Prison Hunting Ground, he can cover an entire area with shadows and completely erase light, almost as if it's a domain expansion. But his real trump card is his Devil Union. As you know, he has contracts with 4 mid-ranking devils, and with Devil Union, he can merge his body with the devils and switch between different modes. For example, with Unite mode, Canis, he can create an army of Shadowhounds to swarm the enemy. With Unite mode, Accuse, he gains a heavy shadow armor that can withstand even the highest ranking devil attacks. With Unite mode, Fellis, he becomes overwhelmingly fast, and with Unite mode, Gallus, he can use sound-based attacks to paralyze enemies instantly. Plus, he can even combine his shadow magic with the dark magic of Yami and his sister to create even more spells, and it's especially powerful because dark magic and shadow magic strengthen each other. And also, let me remind you that Nacht is the one to actually help Asta achieve his Devil Union. He fights and forces Asta and Liebe to work together, and ultimately guides Asta to create a proper contract with Liebe in preparation for the Spade Kingdom battle. At number 3, we have Henry Legoland, a guy who talks at 0.25 speed. While Henry was born as a nobleman, he was unfortunately cursed with the illness that drains mana from anyone near him. This condition was so bad that his family had to live in a secluded house in the common realm. But then eventually one day, his parents left and just never came back. He was basically left to die, and he would have died if it wasn't for Yami finding him when he did. When Yami found him, Henry offered to let Yami have the house, but Yami rejected that, and instead asked Henry to join the Black Bulls. From there, that very house became the Black Bulls' hideout, and thanks to the Black Bull members staying at the hideout, he could get enough mana from them to continue on living. Henry is a gentle soul who loves and cherishes the Black Bulls, even Gosh, whom he thinks is creepy. Plus, thanks to Asta being magicless and all, he can hang out with Asta without worrying about draining mana off of him. Moving on to his abilities, Henry has a good amount of magic power thanks to his nobleman heritage. Also, the additional mana that doesn't go into reinforcing his ever-ailing body can always be used to boost his magic, which brings us to his magic attribute, Recombination Magic. This allows him to reshape or move the Black Bull's hideout at will. He can turn it into a giant humanoid or multiple variations to use as an avatar to fight. He can also use sections of the house as ammo for long-range attacks or for making an escape by shooting out of any certain room. At number 4, we have the greatest witch genius since the founding of the country of witches, Vanessa Anoteka, also known as the Drunken Frenzy Witch. She is like the big sister of the Black Bulls, who does things like taking Noelle and Asta on a shopping trip, and also enjoys flirting with handsome men like Yami. Generally, she fits the trope of the relaxed drunken lady who loves her liquor, and has absolutely no problem lounging around in almost nothing. Now, part of her everyday behavior with regards to drinking was also because she had held a low opinion of herself, but Noelle and Asta helped her break out of that shell. And just like how Yami once literally broke her out of her cage. You see, Vanessa was actually the favorite of her mother, the Witch Queen. One day, the queen saw the true potential of Vanessa's thread magic thanks to her divination, and decided to lock her away in a cage so that the power would ultimately stay under her control. She remained in that cage for years until Yami invaded the witch's forest and accidentally broke into her prison. Yami told Vanessa to stop letting destiny decide her life, and basically gave her the courage to flee her homeland and join the Black Bulls. Though, what exactly makes her thread magic so special that the queen would keep her in a cage for it? At its basic level, the magic allows her to generate and manipulate thread. She can use these threads to bind victims and control their movements like puppets, and she can also use these to assist allies like moving them away from attacks. It is also incredibly useful for field surgery, as the threads can seal wounds and hold broken bones in place. Plus, to make these things even more dangerous, these threads are completely invisible unless an opponent uses mana to detect them. But the real reason the queen was so fixated on this magic is revealed in chapter 82, which explains that at its peak, this power can control fate itself. We're talking about a spell called the Red Thread of Fate. By summoning a small red cat, whom she calls Rouge, Vanessa can change the course of reality to protect those she cares about. As long as her fellow members are physically near her, Rouge will nudge existence itself to make sure the Black Bulls never get hit by a direct lethal attack. Of course, a spell this powerful is extremely mana hungry, so Vanessa has to be very careful with how long she keeps it active during fights. Overall, she's come a long way, As Dorothy pointed out before the compound gargantuan magic Door of Fate spell sequence in chapter 361, Dorothy, the Queen, and Vanessa are the 3 strongest witches in generations. On number 5, we have Gordon Agrippa, our Black Bull's very own goth dude. Hold on, is that even a thing? Despite his gothic face paint, his deep dislike for the sun, and the fact that he mumbles constantly, he is actually a very sentimental and friendly individual. He always tries to offer compliments and say positive things to his fellow members, even if he is rarely ever heard due to his low volume of voice. He also has this habit of making handmade dolls of Black Bulls, though he can be very spooky when presenting them. Basically, he cherishes them greatly because they don't judge him for his appearance. This sense of family is important because you see, Gordon comes from the Agrippa family, a group of commoners who developed quite a reputation because of their curse magic. So between his family background and his appearance, he grew up completely isolated and without any friends. Eventually, after getting his grimoire, he left his family behind and joined the Black Bulls. When it comes to his abilities, we first have to talk about the infamous curse magic. It allows a user to add lasting negative effects to their spells, and these can be anything from dulled senses and sickness to actual death. But Gordon doesn't really use it to that extreme extent, despite being an expert in it. Gordon's primary attribute is poison magic. As you would expect, this allows him to manipulate poison in both liquid and gaseous forms. Poison magic, Forbidden Fruit, launches a massive concentrated mass of poison at the target, while poison magic, Purple Umbrella, creates a large veil or shield of a concentrated poison around an area, creating a defensive barrier that harms enemies. Gordon can also combine his poison magic with curses to create even more powerful spells, such as Dwelling of the Poison Cloud, which engulfs a wide area with a spreading poison cloud that corrodes any life it touches. At number 6, we have Finral Rulacase, the lover boy. His lore is rooted in his childhood with his younger half-brother, Langris Vod. You see, Langris was the son of their father's second marriage, but from the very beginning, his deadly offensive magic completely overshadowed Finral. Because of this, Finral grew up incredibly insecure about himself and his potential. Things only got worse until the day both brothers met Finesse Kalmreich, the woman betrothed to whoever becomes the next head of the noble house Vod. She was the first person to truly acknowledge Finral. Even though it seemed obvious that Langris would take over the family, she told Finral that he was actually kinder and a better magic knight than his brother. Fast forward a few years, Finral joins the Black Bulls, while Langris joins the Golden Dawn. And then, when Langris becomes the vice captain of the Golden Dawn squad, Finral was officially removed from the family heir position. This leads to him changing his surname to that of his mother and becoming a playboy, but his heart clearly remains stuck on Finesse. And so, in chapter 224, he declares to Langris and Finesse that he'll become the next head and win Finesse's hand. Though, why exactly was his magic overshadowed by his brother in the first place? Well, while both of them have spatial magic, his personality is more aggressive and competitive, which is why his magic is about destruction. Finral's personality is gentle and generally about supporting others rather than competition, which is why his spatial magic is about transportation. Specifically, it focuses on mobility and support by creating portals, though he has to see or to have seen where he wants to open a portal to. He can also use the Heart Kingdom's mana method thanks to the training he did there under Spirit Guardians together with fellow Black Bulls, thanks to which his activation speed has become near instant. At number 7, we have Charmy Papipson. And remember, you never ever want to waste food around her. She is a unique dwarf-human hybrid, the only character we know of with dwarf heritage, whom Yami recruited after finding her in a trap. Despite her small size, she's a big eater who can sometimes prioritize her meals even when things are serious. For example, when the Royale capital was being invaded, she decided to follow food rather than help in defending the capital. And during the Temple Battle Royale, she was fishing and cooking instead of looking for opponents. Now, you also have to remember that you never ever waste food around her. This is because when she is enraged, starving, or sees food being disrespected, she taps into her massive dwarven mana reserves and enters a taller, more human-like form that is absolutely terrifying. But as hardcore as she is about food, she also loves sharing meals with the gang, and sometimes even with former enemies. Though good luck trying to leave the table while she is still sharing food. To add to her personality, she fell in love with Yuno after he served her quite a platter of food and started calling him the Prince of Meals. Next, thanks to her dual heritage, she possesses 2 mana affinities, cotton magic, and food magic. With cotton magic, she can create and manipulate cotton, even conjure up floating cotton large enough to carry the bulls. She also uses creation magic to turn this cotton into powerful constructs, like her sheep cooks who prepare mana-rich meals for the black bulls, or soft sheep cushions for the team, or a massive giant sheep for pummeling her enemies. And while she uses her cotton magic for all those sheep constructs, her food magic manifests as a predatory wolf that allows her to literally eat an opponent's magic. Finally, after learning the mana method of the Heart Kingdom, she can now use real cotton with her cotton magic. And with her food magic, she can actually cook an opponent's magic before consuming it. Like, actually cooking as if they're in a kitchen. On number 8, we have Grey, a painfully shy girl who's only ever social or friendly when she's transformed into someone else. Basically, she's easily embarrassed when she's in her true form, but while transformed, she can be friendly and enjoy walking together with the fellow bulls. And in a way, she kind of ends up imitating the attitude and personality of the person she transforms into. This shyness is unfortunately due to a lack of confidence in her true self because of the abuse she experienced. Which brings us to her backstory. When her father remarried, she had to live with her stepmother and 2 older stepsisters, and they treated her like how stepmothers and stepsisters treat Disney princesses. She was forced to do all the household chores, and even though she tries to get along with the stepsisters, and at one point even transforms to look more like them because she naively thought they'd accept her, it only makes them furious. They get so mad that she'd impersonate them that they chase her out the house. She's then all by herself when 3 random bandits try to rob her, but Gosh knocks them out. He does it because his sister wanted to save the poor girl, but thanks to him, Grey develops the will to keep moving forward. She eventually joins the Black Bulls, and later Gosh joins as well, though she is in a disguise when he joins, and doesn't learn it's her until later. Gosh is basically the most relevant to her personal lore, and it's clear that it's thanks to him that she has come so far. And things like when he complimented her potential and transformation magic means a lot to her. And speaking of transformation magic, let's talk about it. Or more like transmutation magic, because that's her main attribute. This lets you disassemble a substance, be it physical or magical, and reassemble it into another substance. Plus, unlike Grey's transformation magic, which she uses to look like other people or objects, transmutation magic permanently changes the substance's structure. The change can be simple as stone to sand, or as complex as rocks and human tissue. And this also goes beyond healing because it resembles the human tissue instead of something like regeneration. Obviously, it is very useful for healing her allies. Then at number 9, we have Grey's savior, Gosh Adalai, the Siskon. He has a younger sister named Mary, and he's the trope of an overprotective brother, but he takes it to a pretty obsessive degree. I mean, he actually gets a nosebleed whenever he thinks about her, and always keeps at least one photo of her on him. For example, when a group of random criminals did not wish his sister a happy birthday when he asked, he was fully intent on killing them. He even hated Asta at first simply because Mary said she wanted to marry him. For the longest time, he'd also only ever be kind if it's for his sister, like how he saved Grey because his sister asked him to. To understand why he's like this, we have to look at what happened to their parents. He is a nobleman born as the first son of House Adlai, but sometime after his sister was born, his parents died in a quote-unquote accident. Their will gave all their wealth to those who were supposed to be the friends of House Adlai, which led Gosh and Mary ending up on the streets. This is when he realized that the only one he can trust is himself and his sister. That's why when he saved Grey, he told her to do everything by herself to make it clear that she can't rely on anyone. Eventually, he is imprisoned for attacking a noble's house while his sister is sent to an orphanage. Things change when he tries to break out of prison, but gets defeated by Yami, who then recruits him to the Bulls. Of course, he has changed since then, especially after Mary herself punched him to try and get him over his selfishness. Well, he does want to be a brother whom his sister can be proud of. When it comes to his abilities, Gosh as a nobleman has a good amount of magic power. Also, as a human vessel for the elf Drawa, he retains some of the magic power even after getting freed from the possession. The primary magic attribute we're talking about here is mirror magic. It lets you create and manipulate mirrors from all sorts of shapes and sizes, and it lets you do a lot with these mirrors. For example, you can use them for two-way communication to reflect and weaponize light, to create mirror duplicates of someone, or even to move instantaneously between mirrors. Plus, mirror magic is super effective against light magic, though it's not very effective against gel magic because that refracts light, or dark magic which absorbs light. Now, Gosh can also combine his magic with others to create more powerful spells through mirroring. It's union magic, and we see a great example of this in chapter 241. While up against Dante, he uses Mirror Brigade to manifest multiple copies of Asta, and just like that, you have an entire brigade of anti-magic Astas jumping Dante all at once. Next up at number 10, we have Magna Swing, the classic Japanese Yankee. He's the tough guy who tries to act tough in front of everyone except Yami, and he's always quick to yell at you, like when Asta asked him about the duty of the Magic Knights. He also has an exceptionally quick temper, and he often finds himself getting into random fights, mostly with Luck Voltia, and for the most random reasons imaginable. Though for what it's worth, he does show respect to those he acknowledges. You see, Magna grew up as a peasant in the backwater village of Rayaka. He was a local troublemaker, but after turning 15 and getting his grimoire, he decided to prove a peasant could become a top-tier magic knight. And so, he joined the Black Bulls. When it comes to his abilities, he has extraordinary reflexes and stamina, and his magic attribute is Fire Magic, which is about generating and manipulating fire. His attacks are mostly about launching fireballs at opponents, but he can also use the fire to restrain them, and with Creation Magic, he can even create objects out of fire. Honestly, he has a lot of spells, and an impressive naming sense as well, such as the Soul Chain Deathmatch spell. This involves throwing a fireball, which when it explodes, leaves behind a magic circle that generates a chain connecting the opponent with him. This chain is made from both his and his opponent's souls, and it evenly splits the total magic power between them. This means that even if his opponent has more magic power, it will be equalized after this spell, and the opponent can't pull or break the chain. And this spell doesn't end until one of them loses consciousness. We see him use it on Dante Zogratis, and this specific spell is thanks to him spending the 6-month time skip learning how to use rune arrays from Zora Ideal. He did this because he didn't want to be left behind by others, especially Luck Voltia, who was learning the Heart Kingdom's mana method. And this is what makes Magna so impressive. Even though he is a commoner with limited magic, he constantly finds ways to bridge the power gap through sheer grit and creativity. Now, before we talk about the next Black Bull on the list, Luck Voltia, I want to bring up a couple union magic spells Magna performs with him, where they combine fire magic and Luck's lightning magic. For example, there's the Flame Lightning Explosive Cannon, where Magna gathers fire magic in his right hand, while Luck gathers lightning magic in his left, and the two of them launch an explosive cannon with their magical discharge. There is also the Black Flame Black Lightning Explosive Cannon, which as we see in chapter 369, adds anti-magic to the attack. At number 11, we have, of course, Luck Voltia, the sociopath who is always smiling and always wants to have a battle to the death. He's always seeking strong opponents, and while he has learned to work together with the Bulls, he has an obsession with wanting to win against his opponent without any assistance. This is because of his promise with his mother, which brings us to his personal lore. His obsession exists because his mother never showed him love until he defeated a noble student at his school's magic tournament. That's when she hugged him and told him to keep winning. And even though she died due to stress, his brain had already been wired to think that fighting is the only way to prove his existence. Eventually, he enters the Magic Knight's entrance exam, but he nearly kills his opponent during the combat test. This is why the other captains didn't want to recruit him, as they considered him too dangerous and sociopathic. But of course, Yami had no problem with that. Next, we have his abilities, and there's a lot to talk about here. Luck has extraordinary mana sensory, which he often uses to find strong opponents. He can differentiate among the magic attributes of different people, and Yami personally said in chapter 11 that his sensory ability surpasses even that of nobles. Also, because he was the human host of an elf named Lufulu, he retains some of that elf's magic. The primary magic attribute we have here is lightning magic, which involves manipulating and unleashing lightning, or even using it to speed blitz others by coating his legs with it. His proficiency increased greatly after he experienced Lufulu controlling his body. Plus, after the Heart Kingdom training time skip, where he learns their mana method, he becomes able to create multi-layered arrays to boost his speed even further, and shoot from more points midair. We're talking about true lightning magic here. And after learning the ultimate magic technique under Dryad, which embodies all of his magic to create a unique, truly powerful spell. As we see in chapter 284, he borrows mana from the environment and creates an ultimate magic spell called Lightning Battlefield, where he coats his entire body in lightning magic, transforms into a badass form, and becomes fast and strong enough to blitz 4 mid-ranked devils. Luck also uses creation magic to create objects from lightning. As we mentioned, he has combination spells with Magna. At number 12, we have Noelle Silva, a royale of House Silva, and a classic tsundere. Her character arc is amongst the most impressive when you put all shonen female leads next to each other. When we first met her, she couldn't even hit a target right in front of her, and she hid behind what was nothing more than an arrogant facade. She was acting all stuck up and going on about how a commoner like Asta needed permission to talk to her. But it soon became clear that Noelle's stuck-up personality was shaped by a constant rejection from her siblings, Nozel, Solid, and Nebra. Because her mother, Acier, died giving birth to her, her siblings treated her as if she was the one responsible for killing their mother. Though as we later learn, the reality of their mother's death was far more complicated. While their mother was recovering from childbirth, Vanica Zagratis from the Dark Triad attacked. To protect baby Noelle and young Nozel, their mother fought her and drove her away. But Megecula, the devil hosted by Vanica, placed a curse on her that led her to death. Nozel knew about the curse, but because Megecula's curse kills anyone who speaks of it, he kept it a secret to protect his siblings. Still, for Noelle, this led to a deep-seated inferiority complex, and naturally, years of verbal abuse also made Noelle skeptical of anyone's kindness. That's why when she joined the Black Bulls, she expected them to mock her for her lack of magic control, just like her family did. So she took on a proactive approach by acting all arrogant and hiding behind her noble status. She was also trying to cope because her brother, the captain of the Silver Eagles, had already rejected her when she tried to join their squad. And to her, that felt like the final act of abandonment. Yami then enters the chat and recruits her, and for the first time, Noelle gets a place where she belongs. With the support of the Black Bulls, especially Asta and Vanessa, she begins to grow and develop confidence in herself, and her personal growth is directly reflected in the evolution of her magic. Speaking of her magic, we have a lot to talk about. Noelle's base magic is water magic, but she truly shines when she uses creation magic to shape that water attribute into complex, high-density forms. For example, Sea Dragon's Roar is her signature offensive spell. It creates a massive sentient dragon head of water that can devour opponents' spells and crush them with sheer pressure. There's also Sea Dragon's Cradle, which is a defensive and transport spell that creates a massive sphere of swirling water capable of protecting an entire squad even in high-pressure environments like the Seabed Temple. And then we have her Valkyrie armor. It's a suit of water armor that covers her body and allows her to dance through the air by controlling the mana around her. Basically, it turns her into a high-speed melee fighter. And later in chapter 252, we get the mermaid variation of her Valkyrie armor. Then, in chapter 295, after a temporary contract with the water spirit Undyne thanks to her spirit magic, we get Saint Valkyrie armor. With this, Noelle actually manages to match and then even surpass Vanica of the Dark Triad, even when Vanica was at 100% power. While the contract with the water spirit eventually ends, Noelle gets acknowledged by the sea god Leviathan. He forms a contract with her because she is a powerful water mage, and her experience with Undyne made her a compatible option. With that, we get another evolution called Valkyrie Armor Dragon Form. In this form, she goes up against her mother, who had been resurrected as a paladin by Lucius in a one-on-one in chapter 372. While Noelle ultimately can't keep up alone, we get a moment that culminates her entire character arc as her siblings apologize and make peace with her. They come together as a family to defeat their resurrected mother with a combined Sea Dragon's War that makes her mother proud and defeats her paladin form at the same time. Finally, we have Asta himself at number 13, the flaw of the world. Despite having absolutely zero magic in a world where your worth is determined by your mana, Asta's goal is to become the next Wizard King. He is famous for his never give up attitude that borders on insanity, and also has a habit of screaming his lungs out at any opportunity for whatever reason. This also makes him the loudest member of the Black Bulls. Next, let's get into his lore. Asta's mother left him at the doorstep of a church in the Forsaken Realm in order to save his life. As we later learn, she was afraid she'd eventually drain his life because of the curse placed on her. He was found by the priest, along with another infant named Yuno. Both grew up as brothers, best friends, and rivals. When a thug stole Yuno's necklace, Asta fought to get it back despite being smaller and weaker. He took a massive beating, but succeeded, which led to two of them deciding that they would race to become the Wizard King. Now in preparation, Asta, who had zero mana, decided to lock in like Saitama. He constantly pushes his physical body to its limits so that his raw physical stats are always the best around. Next, a few days before the Grimoire ceremony, Asta confesses to Sister Lily, who he is obsessed with for some reason. He doesn't give up even after she rejects him, In fact, he keeps confessing until his last one at the age of 18. While she takes that one a bit more seriously, she ultimately sees him as family, so she can't. Which is good because now the Noelle x Asta ship can see some genuine movement. Anyways, going back in time to the Grimoire acceptance ceremony at age 15, and Asta initially doesn't receive one. Then, he gets cornered by Revici, a rogue mage who was after Yuno's grimoire, and loses his spirit. But after learning how much Yuno respects him, he regains his will to fight, and as fate would have it, this causes a grimoire to appear and give him a sword that negates magic. He defeats Revici and makes it clear to Yuno that their race is still on. Fast forward to 6 months later, we have the Magic Knight's entrance exam. While it's a disaster for Asta at first, he makes it clear that he won't lose to anyone in physical stats by immediately knocking out a cocky opponent named Seke. The captains are not so amused, except of course, Yami. He is impressed by Asta and his anti-magic sword and decides to recruit him into the Black Bulls. From that point on, Asta treats everyone in the Black Bulls as his family. This is also because another promise he made with Yuno that they would both treat their squad mates as family. Plus, Asta had always been heavily involved in inspiring other members to face their trauma and surpass their limits. Now for Asta's abilities, let's make this straightforward. Asta's power comes from a devil named Libe, who resides in the Five-Leaf Grimoire. Libe was actually a low-ranking devil who was bullied in the underworld. Then, after coming to the human world, he was driven away by magic knights. Asta's mother found him, adopted him, and named him Libe. Unfortunately, an intervention from Lucifero caused Libe to fatally injure her. But as she was dying, she put Libe in the grimoire so he could be safe. Inside that grimoire, Libe's overwhelming hatred for all devils eventually created his own power, anti-magic. Asta gets this from him, and it's basically energy that nullifies, cuts, and reflects any magic it touches. This also means that no one except Asta can handle this power, because unlike others, he has 0 mana. This 0 mana has tactical advantages, and he can't be sensed by mana detection and is immune to environments that drain life force. Naturally, thanks to years of grind, Asta's physical stats are so superhuman that you can mistake his raw physical ability for magic. I mean, he can actually just speed bliss you with pure muscle. He can also do 1,000 single-handed handstand push-ups. Plus his arm strength was later enhanced by the Witch Queen's blood magic, and he ultimately becomes a master swordsman. He currently has 4 swords. The Demon Slayer sword, which is his first anti-magic sword, cleaves straight through magic and deflects it with the flat side. The Demon Dweller and Demon Destroyer swords can absorb magic and revert magical effects. And the Demon Slasher katana is a sword that belonged to Yami, but became an anti-magic sword after Yami gave it to Asta. It specializes in selective cutting. Thanks to Yami, he also learns how to use ki, which, like I said, is like observation hockey. His combat proficiency improves as he finds new ways to evolve, like Zetten, which involves concentrating ki and anti-magic into a single point for a strike, so powerful it can split the sky. Then there's the devil-possessed state. Initially, Asta was just a host, but as he drew more energy, he started looking more like a devil. But it wasn't until the devil binding ritual with Nacht that Asta became truly strong, as he finally made Libe his equal. This allowed them to merge their bodies and souls into a single armored form called Unite form. At first, this form was unstable and only lasted 5 minutes. However, after Asta learns about Libe's past and their mother, their synchronization improves and the union becomes much stronger. This extended the time limit to 10 minutes. Finally, while fighting Lucius alongside Yuno on Judgment Day, in chapter 386 to be more precise, Asta and Libe become one. They have achieved perfect union. Moving on, we have Zora Ideal, the son of the first peasant magic knight, at number 14. He is everyone's favorite anti-establishment Chad who functions as a mirror to the corruption within Clover Kingdom. Naturally, he treats everyone, including nobles and even the Wizard King, the same. By treating everyone the same, I mean he is disrespectful to everyone. He uses aliases and deception, like how his identity is Zerx Lugner during the Royal Knight selection exam. And his whole thing is about humiliating those he deems stuck up or unworthy of their status. This behavior is actually a direct result of what happened to his father at the hands of the corrupt magic knights. As I mentioned, Zora grew up as the son of Zara Ideal, the first peasant who ever had become a magic knight. He was a kind man who, when Zora was 12 years old, gave him a doll and encouraged him to be more social. However, he died during a mission with his squad, the Purple Orcas. And while visiting his father's grave, young Zora overheard his father's own squad mates talking about how they were the ones to kill him. and only because they couldn't stand the lowly peasant standing alongside them as an equal. Zora clutched his doll, and fast forward to a few years later, he started hunting corrupt magic knights. At one point, Yami asked him to join the Black Bulls, and while he took the robe from Yami, he continued on doing what he was doing. Of course, you can say he was basically a member already when he took the robe, but it's not until later in the Royale Knight Selection Exam arc in chapter 133 to be precise, that he actually reveals himself as a member of the Black Bulls and makes it official. Now, Zora's magic attribute is Ash Magic, which is about generating and manipulating ash. And then there's his Trap Magic, where he draws complex rune arrays on surfaces or even his own body to set up traps. He's so good at it after years of trial and error that he can even teach the mechanics of the traps to others. He can also use the Counter Trap, which is about absorbing an incoming spell, copying it, and by copying it, I mean even its magic attribute and special properties, and sending it back with twice the speed and power. This is how a peasant like Zora is able to be effective against vice captains, captains, and even elves. He's also fast enough to even dodge a point-blank magic bullet from Marx Francois, and he has quite a lot of street smarts that he leverages in the form of his battle IQ. And as we see in chapter 323, he can also combine his trap magic with Sekra Swallowtail's sealing magic. Which brings us to the final character in this list. Finally, the deadpan Sekra Swallowtail, or should I say Nero, is who we have at number 15. To understand her, we have to go back 500 years in the past. She was born into a noble family, but not taken seriously by society because her sealing magic was considered useless. She was then assigned to serve Prince Lemuel's Silvamillion, Clover, and together they created magic tools. One day she followed the prince and his sister Tetia as they sneak out to go visit the elf tribe. It turns out they sneak out regularly to meet Licht, who had saved Tetia's life. Eventually, Tetia and Licht do the deed and conceive twins. They secretly marry in hopes that one day, humans and elves would get closer. Unfortunately, Zagred, a high-ranking devil, tells the Royales about the wedding, which leads to a massacre of the elves, where humans start draining their mana en masse using magic siphon tools. When Licht, the only elven survivor, sees this, and also Tetia getting fatally injured, his grimoire turns into a 5-leaf clover, and he activates a high-level forbidden magic to transform into a giant demon. This was so Zagred couldn't take his body. Lemuel fights Licht's giant form, who is rampaging all over the place, while Sekra realizes that Tetia and one of the twins are still alive, so she seals their injuries. She then helps Lemuel fight Licht's demon form by giving him the magic siphon tool, which she uses to absorb enough mana that Licht becomes weak enough for him to kill. Sekra then uses the magic stones to seal Zagred, but before the sealing is complete, Zagred uses the stones to cast reincarnation magic on the elves so that he can return with them one day. Lemuel had also been fatally injured, so she uses the stones to seal him in a statue. However, because she had overused forbidden magic, she transforms into an anti-bird. Now, Tetia and her child survived, and their descendants lived on in Elysia, the village of elves. Meanwhile, Lemuel becomes known as the first wizard king for defending the kingdom. The flow of time continues, and 5 centuries later, Sekra is still an anti-bird. She notices Asta when the Magic Knight's entrance exam is held, lands on top of his head, and sneaks into his clothes. She sticks around as a deadpan anti-bird who plucks Asta's head or starts pulling his hair whenever she gets annoyed, but also rarely leaves his side. She remains sort of a mascot character until chapter 203, where during the elf reincarnation story arc, she breaks the seal on Lemuel's statue. This reunites her with him, while returning her to a human form. Then you have the final stretch of this arc. Now, while she was basically always a member since she first arrived, it's not until chapter 218, where the Black Bulls barge into the courthouse to rescue Asta and Sekra, and Yami refers to her as a squad member, that she realizes that she is a Black Bull, and more like she has always been. When it comes to her abilities, she can sense the mana in both living and non-living things, and she can locate magic items and point out the quickest path to getting towards the mana she is sensing. She can also use mana method of the Heart Kingdom, and since she is a noblewoman, she naturally possesses a good amount of magic power, not to mention eternal youth, considering her aging has stopped. Of course, her magic attribute is sealing magic, which can be used to open and close things and even spells. As we talked about in her backstory, she uses this to seal Zagred and Lemuel. Plus, she can also use healing magic, like temporarily sealing someone's physical injuries or reconnecting limbs. That's how she saved Tetia and her child after all. And that wraps up our deep dive into every member of the Black Bull squad. Which member is your personal favorite? And if I didn't give your member enough shine, definitely call me out on it in the comments. Alright, that's it. I'll see ya in the next one.